Russia's military wasn't the unstoppable force that NATO planners had feared. The same army that was supposed to capture Baltic capitals in 36 hours struggled to take Ukrainian cities for months. How do three relatively small nations create viable defensive plans when their only real link to the outside world is the same country they're trying to defend against? The answer is the planned Baltic Defense Line, which was publicly announced on January 19, 2024 at a meeting between the ministers of defense of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania in Riga. The scope of the project is staggering by any measure. Based on the initial agreement, the estimated $65 million anti-mobility installation project will see bunkers rise throughout 2025 and beyond. But Estonia's portion alone reveals the true ambition of this undertaking. The new bunkers, similar to underground cellars already commonly found in Estonia, are expected to be 35 square meters, 377 square feet, hardened to withstand artillery strikes and house up to 10 soldiers. The Estonian government has suggested that the project envisions the defensive line not as a final stand. Instead, it's meant to deter Russia from conducting a full-on assault across the Russia-Baltic states border and focus on predetermined locations that would be less defended, but which would get increased NATO support in turn. The strategy is also more sophisticated than permanent defensive fortifications. In March 2025, the Baltic states and Poland announced their withdrawal from the Ottawa Treaty, citing rising Russian aggression and the need for mines as a vital component of modern defensive warfare, especially in the narrow, contested terrain of the Baltic region. Since early 2024, when the initial plans for the line were announced, the Baltics had roughly a year and a half to exercise the plan in reality. For Estonia, construction began in June 2025. This is woefully behind Latvia, where the first construction efforts were reported as early as May 2024. The first signs of the defense line are anti-tank ditches being dug in villages that are closest to the Estonia-Russia border, with the first such ditch reported in Vinski. Each trench is approximately 13 feet wide, 6.5 feet deep, and stretches for 2.5 miles. The ditches are designed to serve as guides for Russia's mechanized infantry, a main battle tank. They would either slow down the advance or force senior Russian officers to adapt and change the plan of attack, which is not Russia's forte by the looks of its track record in Ukraine. But the ditches are just the beginning. By the end of the year, Estonia plans to build 28 bunkers and 10 ammunition storage facilities. Three countries combined don't have a large enough military force or land between their border and their capitals to mount a decisive stance. However, the bunker line is not actually meant to stop a Russian attack, but shape it, as former Estonian Defense Forces Commander General Martin Harum explained. The actual strategy is more nuanced and potentially more effective. The Ukrainian conflict has shown that even small delays and complications can have massive effects on military operations. Russia's initial assumption that it could capture Kyiv in days was shattered by Ukrainian resistance that forced Russian forces into costly urban warfare and extended supply lines. This led to logistics breakdowns that allowed Ukraine to retake most of the territory it lost in the first few weeks of the invasion. The Baltic Defense Line is designed to create similar complications, but on a much more systematic level, by forcing Russian forces to either bypass heavily fortified positions, thus extending their supply lines and exposing their flanks, or assault prepared defensive positions, causing casualties and delays. The line changes the fundamentals of the invasion and forces Russia to be the one to adapt, rather than the Baltics adapting to Russian advances. The Baltic Defense Line isn't just a military project, it's reshaping Estonian society, as the country is expecting to have 4,000 more combat-ready troops by the end of the decade. This is a staggering number when the country's total population is 1.3 million and the current active troop size is only 7,700. Estonia's Defense Forces website states this will lead to half the men born in a given year serving in the military, being one of the few NATO members that maintains mandatory military service. The social transformation goes beyond military training. Children are now receiving basic military education in high schools, and families are rehearsing evacuation scenarios. Estonia is essentially preparing its entire population for the possibility of conflict.